This is Labor Day, right? 127th celebration of this day since it was founded. But what do you do on Labor Day?
Rest.
You rest. You don't work. It's not a celebration of work. It's a celebration of rest. When Pierre asked me to do this presentation, there was a verse I had in mind, which will eventually appear here on the screen. There it is. You go back one. Go back one, please. There we go. He asked me to do this verse, and it was the same verse I'd wanted to do anyway. So our feeling is that God is smiling, because this is something that's important, this particular verse and what's behind it. There are times when I get upset and get worried and get loaded down, and I go to this one. Come unto me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Let's discuss that verse as we go through it, and maybe you'll come out of it at the other end with some pretty good ideas. You see the title here. Go back one, please. There we go. Rest is a yoke. Does that make sense? It's a contradiction. Rest on one side, yoke on the other side. How do you rest and work at the same time? That's what Christ is going to tell you. Now, let's go to verse 1, please. Or the first slide. Well, back one, actually. I'm keeping track of what's here. We as humans, we tend to hurry, and we scurry, and we do here, and we go there, and we do this, and we do that. And what's the result? Just more of the same. We feel that we have to be worthy in our own eyes by what we do, and in the eyes of God and in the eyes of others by what we do. We try to achieve a goal of accomplishment or peace that is always just out of reach. You can't quite get there. But we get exhausted laboring and exhausted trying, and then we feel guilt when we stop because we feel we should be doing. This is not what the Father wants. He wants us. No more, no less, just us. And he wants a relationship, not rules and regulations. And how do we do this? Well, let's start by listening to what God said to David in 46:10. Come on, be still, and know that I am God. Now, how do we be still? That's really easy for God to say. He's God. But we're human. It's hard for us to do. Just try to sit there and be still. You all move somewhere, somehow. Your body's moving, your mind's going everywhere. How do we do this in today's world? This slide right here. I'm going to read you the whole verse. Come unto me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you, and you will learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart. And you will find rest for your souls. Notice he doesn't say body. He doesn't say mind. He says souls. That's what this is all about. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light. Okay, we're going to take this in two pieces. What is the rest he is talking about? And a yoke. What do these mean? Let's go back to the context. of Matthew 11, in which, at the very beginning, verse 2, John's disciples come to him and say, "Are you the one who was to come? Or should we expect someone else?" He tells them to go back to John and report on that John's prophecies are being fulfilled and that he is the one that John has foretold. He uses as examples the lame walk, the blind see, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, and the good news is being preached. These are all the things that John prophesied. He then goes into verse 20, and he denounces several cities in which he preached, and they didn't repent. They had heard what he said, they'd seen his miracles, but they did not believe. Then he zeroes in on his, let's move up to verse 25. Then he zeroes in on his main target. And this is the target he hits throughout his ministry. He is saying, "I praise you, Father, Lord of heaven and earth, that you've hidden these things from the wise and learned and shown them to the children." Now, who are the wise and learned? They're the Pharisees, the people in the temple elders, who they know the law. They're trained in the law, but they don't know the Spirit. And then to the children, they see and they hear and they believe. That's the ones he wants to talk to. In Jeremiah, prior to this, he speaks to that very same point. When he reports what the Lord told him, what Jeremiah reports, he says, "Stand at the crossroads and look. Ask for the ancient paths. Ask where the good way is and walk in it, and you will find rest for your souls." And what did they say? We're not going to walk there. Matthew 23:10, which you don't, it's not a slide. 23, 1 through 38. Jesus expands upon this theme of the Pharisees and the temple elders. He's telling his audience at that point to do what they tell you, but don't do what they do. He's calling these elders and Pharisees 6 times. He calls them hypocrites, snakes, blind guides. He doesn't like these people. Because if they would perform as they ask you to do, then they would know God. And they would love as he commands and show mercy and faithfulness and justice. Then we come to verse 27 fairly quickly, which he says, "This is my job to tell you all about this." Let's go back to 28 and look at it again. This time in context. "Come unto me, all you who are weary," from a derivative of kapos, to feel fatigue, by implication, to work hard, and to be heavily burdened with ceremony. "And I will give you rest," from ana and panu, to remove, to remain. By implication, I will refresh you. "Take my yoke, my burden upon you, and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls." Now, many people don't quite know how to look at this. That's what we're going to talk about. But I look at this as a 2-step offer. Come on to me, and I will give you rest. That's the offer. And how? Take my yoke. It's really about one thing: a close relationship with Christ, and it's based upon 2 words: yoke, and rest. And the implied question, would you rather see and know God as he desires, or through the knothole of rules, regulations, and ceremonies as so many organized religions impose? That's a real question for all of us. Let's talk about rest first. Or if we don't understand that, then we can't take on the yoke. It's not a rest, a physical rest, and it's not an emotional rest. As we said earlier, it's a rest for the soul, for the inner being that is so often at odds with this world. I see 4 steps on how to do this. Not necessarily in this order, but these seem to build on each other. Relax. Chill. Let go. Let go of your desire to control your life and those around you, of adherence to man-made rules that limit your knowledge of God, because they put you through that knothole. You can only see God through here. It's not easy. And if it were, Christ wouldn't have to remind us to do it. Because we know this is an ongoing struggle every day. Enjoy. Just enjoy. Revel in this lightening of your load. Of letting go of the unnecessary rules and obligations. Of seeing God's world as he wants you to. Of not having to do to experience God. He doesn't want you to do that. He wants you to be you. Joe and Pierre and Bill and Stephen and Gary. Just be you. Soak. How many of you have sat in a hot tub? Think about this one, gang. Sit in a hot tub and just soak. Let everything ease out of you. And what's even better is if you have a bubbler in that tub and you can move around and get the bubbles going. This is what he wants you to do. And then you trust. You trust in God's ability to keep you in that position of rest. In his promise that he will never leave you or forsake you. Now, each of us has our own place for rest. Some go to the beach and listen to the waves. Some go in the forest and watch the trees. Some have praise music. Some have meditation. This one is mine. That's your place in the Adirondacks. It's just as quiet as it looks. That's the place to go get rest. We can all find it somewhere, somehow in our world. Okay, let's let rest for a while and move on to yoke. Definition of a yoke. There we go. A wooden device, usually a double one, used by oxen or other working animals to pull a heavy load, a cart, a plow, something heavy. Or a single yoke, as the young lady has. And that is probably what Christ's audiences saw the most, is that single yoke. That's what they saw people using. Now, the question I have, which yoke are the people or you currently laboring under? Is it a single yoke in which we are attempting to carry in those 2 buckets all of the laws and the commandments that Moses handed out before you could hear God. You had to carry the load first. That's what the Pharisees were saying. Or is it a double yoke like the oxen, in which we, on one side there, are doing all the work, and the Pharisees are just along for the ride? What kind of yoke is Christ offering? As I did research on this, many commentators, like almost all the commentators, lean toward a double yoke, toward a discipleship. Now, I believe this is a more modern concept than what Christ was talking to. Remember the context of what we're dealing with. It's the Pharisaical imposition of rules, regulations, and ceremonies that Christ is saying, you don't have to carry this. That's what they got in their buckets. Nor do I think that they could see themselves in a yoke that only animals used. They would be more ready for a single yoke. Now, to pull this out of Scripture is a little bit more implicit than getting rest, because most of the scriptural references on yokes is negative, talking about slavery or oppression. Two in the New Testament come very close to what Christ was referring to. Acts 15:10. Paul, when he's answering the Pharisees who have demanded that the Gentiles who have converted be circumcised and required to obey the Mosaic law, he says, now then, why do you test God by putting on the necks of the disciples a yoke that neither we nor our fathers have been able to bear? No. We believe that it is through grace of our Lord Jesus that we are saved just as they are. Next one, Galatians 5:1, where Paul is also responding to the assertions of the Jewish Christians, who should know better, who are telling the newly converted Galatians that they must first submit to the Mosaic law to be truly Christians. And he's saying, no. It is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Stand firm then, and not let yourselves be burdened again by a yoke of slavery. In parens, burden of rigorous demands of the law as a means of getting God's favor. A heavy and unattainable burden for a sinful man. Can you imagine the load that guy's trying to carry? He can't even see where he's going. That's what the Pharisees were laying upon the Israelites. An interesting thing I found as I looked was, again, according to commentaries, take my yoke upon you is rabbinical. I was surprised by this. It's based upon the Shema. Did I get it right, Becky? Close enough. Which is composed of daily part of the Jewish culture that Jesus' audience would have known because it was in the public worship of the synagogues. The Shema this slide's going to be here for a while. The Shema is composed of 3 verses. Deuteronomy, and Numbers. And the Deuteronomy verses basically say, love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, all thy strength, all thy soul, and all thy mind. And the other one says, love the Lord thy God and serve him with all your heart and mind and soul. Numbers says, make tassels on your vest to remind you of all of the Mosaic laws that are out there. Of the three paragraphs of the Shema, 2 are concerned with Deuteronomy. 1 is concerned with the tassels. It was arranged this way with the Shema, so the emphasis is on the kingdom of heaven taking that on first, which is what Deuteronomy is talking about. Love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, all thy mind, all thy soul, and serve him. Now, these verses are so important to the Israelites and to today's Jews that they are built into the phylacteries that the Orthodox Jews wear when they pray. They wrap around their right hand, and it's very complicated wrapping. There's a little box on the back, and that has Deuteronomy in it. And the mezuzahs that they put on their house. It's a little tiny device about this big. And that's the law that is being pushed here. Thus, those hearing Christ's invitation here would have understood that by accepting this invitation, it would allow them to first take on the kingdom of heaven, and then the kingdom of the lost. Thus, his burden is easy and his yoke is light. Do you know how much or how big those little pieces of paper are in the mezuzah and the phylactery? About the size of a Chinese fortune cookie. That's it. That's the weight he's asking you to carry. That little tiny piece of paper. Thus, the relationship with God becomes one based on love, not on performance. Upon God's grace, as stated earlier in Acts. Grace is a gift from God, freely given, and doesn't have to be earned, as is mercy. Remember, mercy is not getting what you deserve, and grace is getting what you do not deserve. And you get both of those from God. All right, how do we put this all together? Next slide. There we go. We take the key words of the verse and we put them this way. Christ's yoke is my rest, comprised of two commands. Love the Lord on one side, serve the Lord on the other side. Each bucket. I've carried yokes like this. Years and years ago, we were building a stone chimney up in the Adirondacks for our cabin. And I had a yoke just like that, with two 5-gallon buckets here, or 3-gallon buckets, filled with rocks about yay big around. So I had 30 or 40 pounds on each side. Working my way down through a slippery path about 600 feet down to the cabin. And I was doing exactly what they're doing there. You have to hold the pails, the handles of the pails, to balance the weight. And it's a very delicate balance, because if you lift too much, then you're taking too much weight onto your hands. If you lift too little, then you got a lot here, and you got to watch your feet. Can you imagine? Okay, she's got maybe a 2-gallon bucket there, milk. What, 18? A pound, 16 pounds on either side of milk, roughly. Take that away and put in a little tiny piece of paper. And that's the load she's carrying. And that's the load Christ wants you to carry. He's inviting us to let go of all these rules and regulations and ceremonies that we're carrying that we don't need. That God does not intend us to carry. It's not an easy thing to give up, some of those things that we have been taught that we have to do to be able to find God, and that we unconsciously or consciously still do. What obstacles hold you back? Not worthy? Unlovable? Christ can't possibly love you? I don't know the prayers right, can't do the ceremony. Guilt, can't come close to God, I did something wrong. Shame. I came in late for service. Oh, no. All sorts of things. Now, on each table, there is a styrofoam cup. And in that cup are stones, little stones. Take as many as you want. These represent what you are going to get rid of in your own life. When you leave here, throw them away. Don't break any windows or cars, but you can throw them away. You can drop them quietly as you walk somewhere. Or you can take some home and put them down in an obvious place to remind you of what you are putting down to make your yoke easier. How much easier is it to do a job? No matter how much work is involved, if it's what you want to do, as opposed to have to do. This is what Christ is telling us, carry out my 2 commands, and the rest comes naturally. You have the freedom to move forward. We interact with others out of love, not duty. And that makes a great difference in how we come across. To accept this invitation would be to draw forth from each one of us gifts of compassion, gentleness, and selflessness that is so absent in their law-bound society, and that we here ourselves sometimes have a hard time doing. I started out by saying we hurry and we scurry, and we do this and we do that, and we will continue to do so, because we're human. That's the way we are. Our bodies get tired. Our emotions are going to get scrambled. But as we've worked our way through this verse, and I hope that I've given you some thoughts on how to do so, our inner core, our souls will be more at rest. God's promises are solid and will not let you down. Okay, gents and ladies, it's table time. Enjoy the conversations.